This is very worrying, Chad.
Not great, Craig.
What engine do you have? It's burning a lot of oil. This is a very ethereal-looking Vladimir Putin.
Please don't shove me out a window.
Can we be done now?
No, Craig, we can't.
All right, well. On a ball Earth model, you're not going to be able to see the Toronto skyline from here because of the curvature of the Earth. But
Right.
what do we see? What is that?
The CN Tower,
Obviously,
it's Toronto,
that you
yeah.
can see Toronto
Yeah.
right out there.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, I didn't see you sneak up on us, you little devil. But we're here enjoying a little bit of coffee on this beautiful beach. But why are we here, Chad?
Well, Craig, right behind us is Lake Ontario, and we're going to do something that probably has been done in an EV before, but with a little special of a twist. We are going to visit all 5 Great Lakes today in a single day in an EV.
That sounds like a lot of driving and probably charging as well.
Oh, most definitely it will be. But in addition, to, like I said, to spice it up a little bit, we are going to brew coffee, a pot of coffee, with the water of each Great Lake we visit.
This is from there?
Yes.
The
Yes.
sanitation outwash is just up there.
Yes.
We're just downstream from. Why didn't you tell me that?
I hope
I'm
you have
not
your tetanus
drinking
shot.
this anymore.
Here's a little bit more information about the route we're taking in the car that we're in. We are in a 2023 Nissan Ariya. So the state of Michigan has this Great Lakes Challenge. It's on their website. That is, you can visit all 5 Great Lakes, swim in all 5 Great Lakes in a single day. Now, we're reversing the route. We're starting in Canada, ending up in the United States instead of starting in the United States and ending up in Canada. But basically, we're doing this route in these cities because of this challenge. In theory, you could cheat it, stop in certain places to get that lake experience without going to these specific towns and cut time off your trip. You're more than welcome to do that, but people who have done this challenge on the internet go to these locations. So we are going to go to those locations. Plus, some of the stops that we're going to should be at very beautiful parts of the state that maybe you wouldn't see if you were just trying to really rush it.
Speaking of Russia, how long is the route?
1,100 kilometers, give or take. It's going to kind of depend on how we stop and stuff like that. But if you guys do tackle this yourself, you're not going to take as long to do it, even with the charging stops, because while we charge, we're 1, spending the time to make the coffee, and 2, we have to film. So having our producer with us and shooting these shots just adds a bit to the time. So we will do things like show you the time that we arrive at each stop and how much we charge and stuff like that. We'll give you that information, but just know you can do it much faster. And we're not trying to do it as quickly as we can. We don't want to spend all day doing it because it's just going to be a long day, but we're not trying to, rush this, cannonball it, set a record time or anything like that. As for stops, we have, again, 5 lakes specifically set up. Craig, could you tell them about sort of each of our lake stops?
Yeah, so we started obviously at Lake Ontario, sort of the farthest one out. So Ontario is crossed off the list now. We're heading, of course, westbound through the beautiful province of Ontario. And we're going to hit Lake Erie by ducking south. Grab that, and then we're back into Michigan, where we will then go to Port Austin, which is at the tip of the thumb. That'll take care of Lake Huron. Then we're going to go to Charlevoix for Lake Michigan, and then of course Sault Ste. Marie, or in this case Brimley Beach, way up in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan to check Lake Superior off the list. So a lot of driving, a lot of stops, and of course we're going to have to charge in between. So Lord willing, the public charging infrastructure cooperates.
And if it doesn't, this will be a much shorter trip, but maybe a better video. Who knows?
What do you think of this Ford Transit, Chad? UPI Energy. I don't know that they're going to pass emissions.
I mean, it's a good thing that we're in an EV to offset
Yeah,
the emissions that this thing is doing.
Oh, but they're getting in front of us
Oh,
now.
but he's gonna come in front of us, yeah. So
No mosquitoes, though. It's like a smoke screen.
right, yeah. It is really. What do you think's wrong with it?
I think that's definitely oil burning. It's a bluish hue to it.
Okay.
And if it were a head gasket, it would probably be white smoke and it would smell really bad. And we're not getting any of that. But do you think it's like the 5-cylinder Power Stroke, or is that just one of the gasoline?
I don't know. They offered the diesel for a while out of the Ranger Raptor too. Here, the European Ranger Raptor here as well. So I don't really know.
What engine do you have? It's burning a lot of oil. Oh, the gasoline, diesel, and propane. There you go.
Yeah, it says, gasoline, diesel, and propane on the side of it.
Wow.
So
He's got all 3 of them running through there.
But at least that van's in better shape than this Camry.
Oh boy, that car got smashed up. Yeah, is that a Camry? Is it a Taurus?
It's always a effing Camry, right? Like that's the...
I can't even tell.
No, that was so damaged I can't even tell. Oh, Canada. Craig, we're approaching our second stop on our journey.
What might that be, Chad?
Lake Erie.
Ooh, spooky. It's very eerie.
Spooky.
Except not.
Except not. Great Lake that I'm closest to because I grew up in northern Ohio. The shallowest of the Great Lakes, I believe. Some only 40 or 50 feet deep in the western basin. 100 some feet deep as you go east. Once considered ecologically dead.
I mean, I really blame Ohio for the degradation of Lake Erie.
I mean, well,
Cleveland had a river that literally, a body of water, mind you, that caught on fire. And as I understand, multiple times. This wasn't a one-time deal.
I mean, the Cuyahoga River did, catch fire. It's true. It's much cleaner now, just like how Lake Erie is also much cleaner.
Did they get rid of all the heavy metal toxins and the PFAS from the water?
The only heavy metal left in Cleveland is the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, second stop, weather's good. Let's see how the coffee tastes. So Craig, what if the viewers at home want to make the Lake Erie blend of Ariya coffee?
Well, we've got the ingredients and the hardware to do just that. So join me in my tailgate kitchen here and we're gonna get started. I'm not sure if the Brita pitcher removes heavy metals, pesticides, fertilizer runoff, any of that stuff. But we're going to assume that it does. And I removed the cigarette butts that were in there. We got coffee right here. Canada's finest. Tim Hortons.
However, Craig does not like
Tim
Hortons.
But that's my opinion. If you disagree, that's fine. We only do the best here, so we got a grinder. We're gonna grind this up fresh. Pouring them into the grinder here. There we go, that's a good, maybe just a little bit more. That's about 20%. Oops, I dropped a couple. No big deal.
It's not our car.
They go right in here like that. Get a little terroir, if you will, the flavor of the floor mat. Tap, tap, tap. I'm just pulsing it a little bit here. So we're going to take this, pour our coffee grounds into the bottom of our French press, just like that. Beautiful. Next up, it's time for the electric kettle. We're gonna plug the little base plate in. We've got, again, our filtered water, no cigarette butts or other detritus. Put a good amount of water in here. Click that on. Once that boils, it will shut itself off, at which point we'll pour the water into our French press. We'll wait a couple minutes, we'll push the plunger down, and then we'll have some Lake Erie coffee.
But Craig, before we get to that, we should probably mention that the Ariya does not have a plug in the back.
It does not.
USB, AC, anything like that. And there's no onboard inverter. So if you were to operate a 1500 watt kettle, you're gonna need some help.
A giant battery bank there, which is, we're cheating. I feel like this is cheating, but
it is
in theory, if you had a Lightning,
cheating.
For instance.
If you had a Lightning that has 9.2 kilowatts,
Precisely.
You could definitely do that. If you had one of the eGMP cars with the V to L adapter that you can plug in there, that'll do somewhere between 1500 watts and 3.2 kilowatts, depending on the model. So you would have that there. but the Ariya doesn't have it. Cars like the Mach-E don't. So, you know, we're dealing with what we get with.
Do you want to?
Yeah, if we could show. So throughout the day, we are taking jars of water, mason jars of, this is Lake Erie, Ontario. Back here was our first stop, is right here. So at the end of the day, we're going to compare them all together. But just to point out,
Lake Erie's not looking so hot.
Lake Erie is not. It's not.
Let's just say I'm glad we brought the Brita.
I think that, yeah.
There we go. She clicked off. You can tell that is a serious boil. We got our grounds in the French press. We filled this with some coffee grounds. I'm gonna set this just like that. This is our top. And now we wait 3-5 minutes, whatever. I'm gonna gently press down on this plunger. That's going to force those grounds right to the bottom of the container here, releasing all of their caffeinated goodness into the brew here. I can now pour, and get a luscious, look at that. Fill her up. Let's do our taste test here. Cheers.
Cheers.
Does it have a vegetal smell to it? I don't know.
There
were several hundred seagulls just off to the side.
I will say, and we'll talk about this more towards the end, but I do think it tastes a little different. Makes it maybe a little more meatier, a little more pulpery.
Meatier. There is something off with this. I don't like this.
Or maybe the first one was off. I think it's time that we head on to the next one.
Yeah, we're running late anyway, so. All right. But we have just enough time for Chad. Chad, I'll be right back. Oh, come on. Like you wouldn't have done the exact same. Don't judge me.
ProPilot Assist 2.0 doesn't seem to work in Canada. It's kind of a bummer. Two things that I'm looking forward to once we get into the United States. One, knowing how fast I can drive. Not that you should ever drive faster than the speed limit, but, you know, when stuff's in miles and not kilometers, easier for my Midwest brain to figure out. And two, ProPilot Assist 2.0.
Hands-free.
Hands-free!
Hey, take this next exit. There's a charging stop at one of these.
Oh.
It's okay, it's on the way. The Oil Museum of Canada.
So Craig, why the are we here?
Well, why not, Chad? I mean, we're driving an EV, and there's an oil museum in Ontario.
Of all places.
They do have an EV charger, as we just saw.
They do have an EV charger that seems very anti-oil.
But why don't we check out the museum since we're here? This is James Miller Williams, and North America's first commercial oil. Well, that's what they put the whales out of business then.
Your obsession with whale oil is a little concerning.
Everybody loves whale oil, right? Come on. We got some happy-looking fellas here standing by the cook pot. They're not very talkative, these guys, but they sure are black and white.
They are definitely monochrome.
I don't know what this thing is, but maybe you could do a crab boil in it.
The kerosene lamp, what happened?
Oh, wow.
Wow.
I would have that braided into two, like, pigtails. It'd be a chin pigtail. Idle-free zone. Idling gets you nowhere. This is the oil museum. Wouldn't they want you to burn more fuel?
It seems so weird. It's very Canadian.
I guess. John Shaw and the Shaw Gusher, 1860.
Shaw Gusher.
This is a very ethereal-looking Vladimir Putin cutout.
Please don't shove me out a window.
Yeah, right. And turn down any tea he may offer. So I was just looking at the map here, and we turned off of Oil Heritage Road. We should be in Oil Springs right now, but just up the highway is Oil City, and then a little bit further along Oil Heritage Road is the town of Petrolia. You can really get your hydrocarbon fix right here in Ontario, yours to discover. That's the license plate slogan. If you've not seen one, it's on the plate for the cars, yours to discover. And the provincial flower, if I'm not mistaken, is the trillium, FYI. This is very worrying, Chad. Over here, we can see our estimated range remaining is 6% or 28 kilometers. Over here is distance to the next charger at 27.2 kilometers. Those are nearly the same.
So will we make it?
We should.
I don't know. We'll see.
Be driving past zero potentially.
Yeah.
This is cutting it a lot closer than I expected. I figured we would have a lot more range by the time we got to Sarnia than we actually do. So it's concerning, not gonna lie. We can't get a bag of electrons, fill up a can of electrons, and dump them in the battery. That's not how it works, at least as far as I understand. So we're gonna have to plug in and charge, which is usually slow. What's happening here, Chad?
We're getting overtaken by diesel power.
And why are we being passed by a tractor trailer? And why are we doing less 10 under the limit here?
Because you're worried that we won't make it to the charging station with enough electricity.
Are you not worried?
I'm never worried.
Perhaps you should be on occasion.
I have never been stranded yet.
Well, now's your chance in a foreign land
That's
to not make it.
It's true.
What are we doing here? We got an estimated 23 kilometers of
Yeah,
range, and
21.3,
we've got
we're good.
21.3. Yeah,
We're good.
What did we do? We woed up a little bit, right?
We did. That's a NASCAR term. Woeing up. We have 1.4 kilometers to go, and we have 0% battery. But according to the power indicator, we still have 50% acceleration, so we haven't been throttled too much.
What was your opinion of the nav system, Chad?
It's just it doesn't automatically zoom, and that's a problem when you're trying to find something in a reasonably small area or parking lot or whatever, you know. We made it!
Barely. After the nav system looped us along the wrong direction, of course.
Yeah, the nav system got a tiny bit confused, so I'm not sure if we'll be using that for the rest of this journey. Plug in first. So we're here at the Electrify Canada station in Sarnia, and we're taking all of our camera equipment down because that'll just make it easier when we cross the border and explain to customs what we're doing. It's better to not have cameras all over the place. So if we make it through okay, the next time you'll hear from us and the team will be in Port Austin for our third Great Lakes stop. Greg, They let us back into the United States.
They sure did.
That was one of the easiest border crossings ever, even though the line was quite long.
30-minute wait to get in,
Yes.
which I guess isn't too bad in the grand scheme of things.
But getting to Sarnia was a bit of a challenge because
Yes.
this car isn't as efficient at highway speeds as it is around town speeds. Who would have thought? But the wheels actually play a decent amount into it. Now these are the 19-inch, which is the smallest wheel size you can get on this car. Kind of wish they'd have some 18s. But the standard wheels also have an aero cover on them to help with efficiency. So if we were going to buy this car, we would want to make sure that we get the non-upgraded wheels so that we have those aero covers. And we definitely wouldn't want to go to the 20s.
No, and the point is, we made it to Sarnia, the DC fast charger there, at 0%.
Yeah.
You don't want to do that. We got very lucky because we trickle charged earlier.
Yes,
at Lake
when we're
Erie.
at Lake Erie. But we're in Port Austin. Lake Huron is directly over there. And we pulled into these DC fast chargers here, which we totally expected to be kind of janky 50 kilowatt ones. But they're brand new Joule units. They have an option to charge at either 50 kilowatts, 100 kilowatts, or 150 kilowatts.
Yeah.
And you get to select. So it doesn't pick for you like some charging stations do. So yeah, we chose 100 because we were at 60% when we pulled in. We're going to use this opportunity to top off while we're making the coffee. So we do this now long stretch driving to Charlevoix to get to Lake.
Probably 4 hours, and
Yeah, probably.
it is knocking on 6 o'clock.
Yep, so let's get this coffee made
It's coffee
and-
o'clock. Let's go get some lake water, as one does. Chad, the car's over here, please. Come on.
Since I spent some time today in Canada, I felt that when I was thirsty, it was appropriate for me to try Clearly Canadian, a product of the 90s, because when you're here or when you're there, you're Canadian.
All right, Chad, the coffee's ready. Come on. We got to do our Lake Huron taste test.
Well, that's good because the charging's ready.
Well, that's perfect timing then. Look at that. So what have we got here? Give it a little swirl.
This is the Lake Huron blend.
It smells of a purer bean flavor.
For what it's worth, it tastes a bit weaker. It doesn't smell necessarily as poignant either, or poignant.
Of the 3 lakes we've gone to, it's the only one I would drink. Lake Erie just tasted not right. There was something off about it.
And Lake Ontario, that was fine, but this is definitely, this is the more will be our more popular blend.
Yes, Lake Huron. All right.
Let's
get cleaned up here.
Let's get to it.
All right, Chad, so we're burning daylight. It's obviously starting to get pretty dark out. I don't know how well this is going to show up on the GoPros, but let's very briefly touch on some of the non-EV challenges that we've had on this trip.
Yeah, so a couple of annoyances that I've had were the construction in Canada. In zones where it would be 120 kph, or 110 kph, I'm sorry, they actually are set at 80 kph, and that is just, it just feels like you're creeping. And that just adds a lot of time. And there was a lot of law enforcement. So that was definitely a bit of a frustration. And then as we got to cross the border back into the United States, while we said earlier that the border guard was great and it was a nice quick conversation, we were in line for like half an hour, just kind of just sitting there. It's like,
Which ain't too bad. I've had a lot longer
Sure.
delays at the Blue
Sure.
Water Bridge. But yeah, still, you don't, when you're pressed for time,
yeah, you don't want
a half-hour delay.
Yeah, just sitting there, just waiting. Like you're like, oh, it's getting late. Like, oh my gosh, what the time is. So, those were a couple of concerns that I have. Craig, what did you?
Really, the only other issue we've had was a road closure here in Michigan, one of the secondary roads that we had to go jog around that added about 5 miles to the overall distance. So again, hardly the end of the world. But again, we are pressed for time and daylight.
And this is our longest stretch that we're walking into, or driving into, I should say. And fortunately, we were able to get that sort of opportunistic charge there in Port Austin, like we talked about.
I was over the moon with
Right.
that. We were expecting 50 kilowatts. We were able to pick 100. We fully charged the Ariya here.
Yep.
So we're going to be able to, skip the other planned charging session?
So we were initially going to plan to start to charge in Bay City. Now we can go all the way to Gaylord, Michigan. So we're going to go to the Meyer and Gaylord, where we're going to charge, and hopefully that'll be our last DC fast charging stop of the day, of the trip. But the one thing that I am looking forward to, because we talked about a couple of negatives, is I'm finally going to be able to really use ProPilot Assist 2.0, because most of this next drive is going to occur on Interstate 75, which should be digitally mapped for hands-off driving.
It should. That's a major highway.
It is.
Here in the Midwest, in Michigan especially. When I tested this vehicle a couple months back, there were actually some sections of the highway where the system would disengage. I-75 roundabout the Auburn Hills area, I was having some trouble with it.
Sure.
Which is surprising because that's a huge population center, the Metro Detroit area. So we'll have to see once we get on the highway what happens.
But yeah, Lord willing, the next time you hear from us, we will be in Gaylord, Michigan, charging an Electrify America charger and not waiting for a Bolt EUV to finish 50 kilowatt charging.
Please, Lord, let there not be
please.
a Bolt at the 350.
All right, see you guys soon.
Well, it is pitch dark outside, so I have no idea how much the camera's going to pick up here, but Chad, how is ProPilot Assist 2.0 working for you here on I-75?
Not great, Craig.
Yeah, I heard it beeping and you're sawing at the wheel.
So a couple of things that I've noticed, and this is throughout the day. We are on I-75. I am not in a blue zone. It was only in a blue zone for very briefly where I could take my hands off the steering wheel. Now it says the HD maps are under maintenance, so I have to do the hands on the steering wheel part. Not a huge problem. That's what I've been having to do all day. But the system that detects whether your hands are on the steering wheel, I'm not sure if it's touch sensitive or if it's a torque sensor in the steering wheel. I don't remember from the initial drive program. It's been a long day. But whatever it is, it will often tell me my hands aren't on the steering wheel. So I'll grab the wheel to kind of saw it a little bit, to give it a little bit of torque, and it still doesn't pick up that I'm driving the car. So then it starts beeping at me. So the calibration on it could be a little bit better. But otherwise, you know, we're making good time, so onward and upward. Good news, everybody.
What is it, Professor Farnsworth?
No hands on the wheel. So we are in a blue, I don't say blue zone, that's a Ford thing, but we are in, everything's blue. I can drive hands off. I don't know what changed from a few minutes ago to now, but now it's going to change lanes left.
You tap the signal and you got to have your hand on the wheel.
Yep.
But it does the rest.
But it does the rest, and then once the lane change is complete, it will go back to blue. You take your hands off, you're good to go.
When it works well.
Yes, it does work very well when it works. I wish it worked a little bit more often.
And just a point of clarification.
Yes.
The blue, Ford says blue zones, but Nissan uses blue as well to indicate the hands-free zone.
Ford may even have a trademark on blue zone. So
but the blue zone works for me. But we've got blue, like LED lighting on the
ambient lighting
panels.
is blue.
Yes.
So when everything in the car is blue, you can drive with your hands off the steering wheel. If all of the lighting is green, you have to be hands on the steering wheel.
Lame.
And if none of the lighting's on, then you better be paying a whole lot of attention. 100 miles to go.
Yeah. To Gaylord, we'll do some charging in Gaylord, and then it's another 2 hours to Lake Michigan.
Look, it's going to be about 4 in the morning when we're done here, but we'll have done it all in a 24-hour single day. No sleep till Brimley.
Brimley. Well, based on the sign, you can see we finally made it to Charlevoix, and of course Lake Michigan is right out there in the inky blackness.
Craig, it's getting pretty late, so we could probably use some coffee, so we should probably get that started.
Another cup of coffee. I'm gonna go get some water, I guess, from the lake, right? It's over here or something. Well, we've got our freshly brewed Lake Michigan coffee. Cheers.
Cheers.
Chad. Let's give a taste here.
What do you think?
Well, it definitely tastes like more Tim Hortons, but maybe a little bit more flavorful than Lake Huron.
Oh, okay. Well, we have one more lake yet to go, so we should probably, yeah, we do.
Can we be done now?
No, Craig, we can't.
All right, well.
So,
off we go then. We're at the end of it here. Just about done.
Craig, we're finally in the UP.
Emphasis on finally, because this has been a murderously long day.
It has been. We didn't plan on charging in Mackinac City, but in order to film some of the footage to make this video look beautiful, we had some extra time, so we took advantage of stopping at the Tesla supercharger that now has Magic Dock support. So I wanted to clarify, just because we said we weren't going to stop anymore, but we did. But now, onward to Brimley.
Well, that's still Tim Hortons, even though the Lake Superior water should be the best, based on the name at least.
We are at Lake Superior because, Craig, we did it.
I don't believe it, but we did. We made it all the way.
It's 3:45 in the morning, but we have now officially visited all 5 Great Lakes in a single day in an EV and made coffee at each one of them. We're in front of Brimley State Park for Lake Superior, and we did it.
It's hard to believe, but somehow we managed.
It's really late, so we'll summarize everything for you on the flip side.
Well, good morning, Chad, and it sure was nice to get a little bit of sleep after, some 21 hours in the car yesterday? That was a very long day, but What did we learn from this experience?
Well, we learned that Canada's right behind us again.
Who knew?
Who knew? 2, the Ariya is a very competent road trip vehicle. It's ProPilot Assist when it does its lane centering and stuff really well. It's great. And its DC fast charge rate, while not best in class, does hold a fairly decent charging curve. So there might be quicker ways to do it, but Ariya ain't a bad way to go, especially
and those
with
seats are very comfortable.
Those zero gravity seats,
for hours on end. I was very pleased with those.
Exactly. 3rd, we learned that you can visit all 5 Great Lakes in a single day in an EV. And even if your hotel doesn't have the best charging to start the day with, the DC fast charging network in southern Ontario and northern Michigan has gotten significantly better. We were able to use a Tesla supercharger, use the Magic Dock to get some electricity at some point, and our Electrify America experiences weren't completely terrible.
It's the first, I think. We were remarkably trouble-free.
We were remarkably
We had a couple close calls, particularly going into Sarnia, where we ended up at 0% when we got to the Electrify Canada station.
And
had we not trickle charged a little bit earlier, we would have been, how do you say the technical term, screwed.
And it would be nice if Electrify America and Electrify Canada, the apps would work the same. If you use like the Joule software or Flow or ChargePoint, you can use them in both countries. So it's just more apps you kind of have to have, which kind of stinks. But we also learned that you can do all of this while making coffee, which adds a little bit of time.
A lot of time, actually.
A lot of bit of time. It won't take you guys 21 hours to do this drive, even with charging, I promise. But Speaking of that coffee, Craig, what was your favorite blend?
I think the only choice is Lake Superior because it's right in the name, Superior.
That's pretty egotistical of that lake to be called Superior.
I didn't name it, but I think it's appropriate.
Being an Ohio boy, I'm going to still stick with Erie. I think it had a little bit extra pungent taste there at the beginning, but also, I'm probably going to die in a couple of days.
It was the cloudiest water by far. We have water samples, and it looks not well.
It looks
ill.
We did filter and boil, so hopefully I don't die too soon. But speaking of both death and that charging experience that we had yesterday, one thing we didn't notice were no Chevy Bolts EUVs or EVs.
Shocking.
Blocking a 300 kilowatt charger with a 50 kilowatt charge, you know? But why is that car so popular?
Well, Chad, that's because the Bolt and the Bolt EUV are both super affordable. And for more information about these electric vehicles, make sure you click right over here to check out our full review.